Earlier this afternoon, Iran seized a Marshall Islands cargo ship called the Maersk Tigris, heading through the strategic Strait of Hormuz. The Marshall Islands is a small country that gained independence in '86. However, in accordance with a treaty that was signed, the U.S. has full legal responsibility for the defense of the islands. This is why this move is so provocative, because seizing this ship is analogous to Iran seizing a U.S. ship. So there are huge stakes at play here. Tom Rogan is a foreign policy columnist with the National Review. He joins me now. Hi, Tom.
Hi, Marissa. Thank you.
All right, so for starters, you predicted this would happen. How significant is this move?
Well, I think it's pretty significant for a few reasons. Number one, the Iranians clearly decided to attack this particular vessel because it had a link with the United States, because being flagged with the Marshall Islands, it allowed them to send a message to the United States. And secondly, bringing it into an Iranian port, there are conflicting suggestions that the crew may have been released now, although that's only from one source. Regardless, the Iranians are clearly trying to send a message here that they control the Strait of Hormuz, a critical strategic juncture for a lot of the world's energy supplies, and that thus they are trying to compel the United States to sort of be deterred, to be aware that they hold the card.
How close to Iran was the ship? Do we know? Because sort of original reports said it was in Iranian waters, but ships go through there all the time. Surely a U.S.-flagged ship would know how to avoid drifting too close.
Right. Well, I think that's exactly right. I mean, in looking at some of the tracking, it appears that they were in international waters when they diverted course. Again, their destination port was in the United Arab Emirates, which is on the opposite coast to Iran. And of course, captains of tankers, such as this one, are very experienced, a big tanker. They're not just going to go into Iranian waters because they know that Iran has a tradition of taking prisoners of people that they claim are in their waters. So I think it's very likely they were in international waters.
Okay, so what's the reason for the provocation then? Is this the Revolutionary Guard, the Ayatollah, trying to scuttle a nuke deal?
I think what it really is Iran is dissatisfied with the Saudi Arabian-led coalition in Yemen pushing back their support for the Houthi rebels. I think it's also a signal on the part of the more hardline elements of the Iranian regime, again, the Revolutionary Guard Corps, Navy, who are responsible here, to say to people like President Rouhani, listen, we hold the military cards. We have a profound ideological hatred for the United States, and we don't want to... They're essentially flexing their muscles. They are trying to basically empower themselves with a domestic audience, but also deter the United States and to threaten the United States that if you don't back off in the nuclear negotiations, if you don't back off in places like Yemen, you may see us doing these kind of actions, and it may get worse.
Well, Yemen aside, but why do you think they would actually try to scuttle the Iranian nuclear negotiations? They've gotten everything they basically wanted. As soon as the deal goes through, they get some $30 to $40 billion through asset unfreezes and sanctions lifted. Is this Iran saying, we've got everything so far, Obama's thrown away every red line, why don't we try for more?
I think that's part of it, that they believe that they can get more concessions. They believe that they can compel the United States to take a position of essentially acquiescence to their demands. But I think it also reflects that part of the hardliner element in the Iranian regime is concerned that in the ultimate signing of a deal, they will give away too much. Iran will give away too much. But again, I think the ultimate point is they believe they can get away with this. And quite frankly, so far today, they've been proved correct in that assumption, in the sense that there has been no statement from the US administration. And indeed, the Pentagon played down the sense that it was a Marshall Islands vessel, completely ignoring the fact that the US has treaty obligations to the defense of the Marshall Islands and the defense of Marshall Island citizens, who, incidentally, and this is just the final point, many of whom have served in the US military. So it's an important relationship, both for moral and strategic reasons, and it's disgraceful that the administration has just essentially pushed it aside. And it plays into the Iranian perceptions of US weakness.
He hasn't today, but do you think he will? How do you predict he'll respond to this?
I think he'll he'll say, well, you have to get all the facts. We don't want destabilizing actions. Iran should be aware that we have military power. He'll equivocate on it, I suspect, and try and push it under the surface because it's not something he wants to deal with. If he was genuinely concerned in terms of a strategic change on the part of Iran, we would have seen a statement today. And it was notable in his press conference with the Japanese Prime Minister that the president was seeking questions that had nothing to do with this, that he wrapped it up. His answers were very long, so that other questioners couldn't come in and have the chance. So that's how I see it.
Tom, very quickly, why do you think he doesn't want to deal with this?
Because he's concerned about a legacy project with Iran in terms of a nuclear negotiations deal. I think he has very little interest in what's happening in terms of the destabilization of the Middle East. He wants to be aside from that. And so he would prefer just to run the gambit of, letting Iran get away with things like this and hoping that in some way moderate elements will eventually overwhelm the nature of the regime. But I think that's delusional. But anyway.
Okay, Tom, thank you very much for joining me.
Thank you.